Nigerian Army intensified crackdown on illegal oil activities in Niger Delta, and they've arrested 12 suspected oil thieves and destroyed 25 illegal refineries, and also recovered 96,000 liters of stolen crude and dismantled 18 boats used in illicit operations across 4 states in the region. The issue of crude oil thieves, the issue of illegal refinery, it seems like one that will never go away.
No, it won't.
Why do you think it will never go away?
It will never end because I want to briefly take us back to what happened when I want to call him Mr. Tantita, when the government, being assigned, his company being assigned security watch over the pipelines in the Niger Delta area, and some section in the Niger Delta area, and how the company, that's Tantita Security Agencies, has been approaching or be getting, apprehending some of the oil thieves.
Yes, for those who are into illegal refinery, the other time we talked about it, we were looking at the possibility of converting them to those who would refine legally. So we have in the Niger Delta region, the Petroleum Training Institute, PTI. How about for those people? Because for one, it's one thing to arrest people and let them serve jail time. Now, the good news is that the prison service has been renamed Correctional Center rather. So it should be not just for people to go to jail and serve time. There should be some correctional activities. This set of people, is there a way to make them study this crude oil refining that they know how to do, but not very well, and so they're doing it illegally? Can they be taught how to refine crude, so that instead of having illegal refineries, we're having more modular refineries? Now, it may seem like some encouragement for crime, but there's a way we can be proactive rather than being reactive. So if there's some form of scholarship that offers people in that area the chance to acquire this knowledge formally, and then there is some internship scheme where they are assigned to industries, could be modular refineries around, so that this knowledge that they already have on the streets, they can refine it and know how to do it properly, and then they work as resource persons for the modular refineries for more production.
Okay.
Because if it's just a thing of, wanting to catch the guys and arrest them, I don't think this will stop, because they are also looking for a way to earn a living, even though they're going about it the wrong way. And there's also the entitlement side of it, where some of them feel this is our land. This natural resources come from our land, so it's for us. We can take it as much as we want.
Okay.
And then there's also the disbelief and mistrust in government over the years that we've left the refining of crude to them. What comes to us as a people at the end of the day? They look around them, they see degradation, environmental degradation. So they feel like, let's take our destiny into our hands so that we by ourselves can refine this crude. The day they catch them, no problem. Some of them are set it in their mind that, well, if they're caught, fine. If they're not caught, and that's why they do it in the bush. Now, those bushes where these activities happen also need to be exposed. If there are activities happening around there, if there are no bushes to hide in, then it becomes more difficult carrying out such practices in the open. So there are lots that can be done aside setting up task force to go after those who are doing this, because the country is losing a lot. Now, the target for Nigeria in this year is to produce 2 million barrels per day. We're still hovering around 1.6, 1.7. With oil thieves taking part of it, how do we achieve that aim?
Okay. I was trying to make a point earlier on before that distraction came. So what I was trying to say about Tantita and Mr. Government Tompolo's activities was that oil thievery is never going to be a thing of the past in the Niger Delta area. I was making that statement because those who engaged in that act are not just street urchins. They are not just street boys. They are not just people who live in the streets and who, how can you take up on yourself the responsibility or the act, or to go learn it, God knows from where, how to cook crude using crude means. And from that, you can get kerosene, you can get diesel, probably you can even get gas using the method. And this is dangerous. Some of them die in the process whilst doing that in the forest. So during some of the arrests that Tantita engaged earlier on, I remember 2023, when it arrested a specific ship on the rivers. What happened? There were naval officers and there were military officers aboard the ship. And his organization, his security organization, that's the Tantita Security Services, who actually apprehended these vessels conveying a large amount of crude away from the shore, where, you know, when they apprehended them, the naval officers and the military officers prevented him from actually apprehending and arresting them until they had to call the National Security Advisor. Oh, that should be 2024. They had to call the National Security Advisor, who was Malam Nuhu Ribadu, who is the current National Security Advisor to the President. So they had to make those calls before they settled. So it's not going to stop, because big wigs, there have been accusations coming from some prominent persons in the Niger Delta area that even big wigs in the military and outside the military are part of those who are participating in crude oil and in oil thievery. Probably, maybe they don't need to go like those boys into the forest to go cook the substance. Probably they ferry it across the shore
like the
and sell it to the big buyers.
The support and all is needed for the boys to carry out the job.
Or probably the boys operate on their own terms, and these big wigs operate on their own terms, where they have it loaded in ships that would take it across the shore and sell to illegal buyers who don't come through the Nigerian government to buy those products. It could be through that process. And most of the times when you say oil thieves are caught, illegal refineries, they are the ones, the petty ones you find in the forest, who have drums loaded it somewhere in the forest, and they are cooking the material. Those big wigs won't, you know, bring themselves down to that level to operate at that level. So it's a thing that's never going to stop until, because I wanted to reference Senator Oshomole, who made a very, very huge remark about that, and that the way the government is treating and handling oil thievery in the Niger Delta, if it has been using the same way to handle those who are illegally mining gold in the northern part of the country, maybe we would have been getting somewhere somewhere that will provide us the results. So
in spite of it, the government is also not getting enough results in the Niger Delta, regardless of how intense the government has been pursuing this issue.
So what you need to do is bring these boys in, bring them into the scope of things. So if I think the government is actually giving a forecast accurately, because if we are producing 1.5 million barrels per day, or 1.45 million barrels of crude per day as it currently stands, and the forecast of the government in alignment with the 2025 budget is about 2 million barrels per day, we are supposed to be producing that. What about the barrels of oil that this non-state actors or these boys who actually cook the fuel, what about the ones they do? The government doesn't factor that into it. So the government...
That's unaccounted for, because it's illegally done. So monies from that doesn't go into the coffers of the government.
So the number, how many barrels per day that those illegal, called illegal refiners refine, is not even factored into the calculation of the government. And if it is not factored in, why can't the government, you know, probably even if it does not want to give them license to operate, the government can regulate them and get oil from them.
Okay, the way we have artisanal mining, you're indirectly asking that we should have some form of artisanal refining.
If we have artisanal gold mining,
we should have artisanal
I
refiners.
know they want to refer that to modular refinery and all of
Modular
that.
refineries are still like an upscale
It
thing.
is, and quite upscale, and it's capital intensive. We're not trying to ask the government, let me know, to refine or to legalize an illegal act. But even an illegal act, when it is turned around to benefit the state, as long as it's not posing health challenge and health hazard to the people in the community, as long as it is not taking the economic power of the community, of the people in the community away, because we know MNOs, multinational organizations who go into flaring of gas in the Niger Delta and even in River State, they've been carrying out activities that sometimes has brought oil spill in the Niger Delta, which led to the crumbling of the farming communities and the fishery communities in the Niger Delta. Those ones have a very detrimental impact on those who live in the communities. So what about those who just do it and you've called them illegal refiners?
No, you know the reason why part of the reason they're called illegal refiners, because it's not just about the fact that they have access to crude without authorization. It's even how they carry out their activities. And the way they're refining, they're not refining in the standard way. You know, when crude oil is refined, there are several petroleum products that comes from it.
Yes.
So you have your diesel, there's kerosene, there's premium motor spirits, probably known as petrol, you know, and several other products that come from it. Now, when they refine, most of the time what they turn out is diesel and maybe kerosene.
Diesel, kerosene, and premium motor spirit fuel.
So what is the quality of the premium motor spirit that they turn out? You know, all of these are things we need to factor in. So if we're talking about artisanal mining and artisanal refining, now there may be two different things, because those who are doing artisanal mining a lot of times do not refine the materials themselves. They sell the primary products to those who would then do the refining of the materials. But if we're talking about these ones, they are sourcing by themselves and also refining. And so because there is need for quality, it may not be very okay to just leave them by themselves. But if the government can find a way to regulate them, I think that may work. But I think they still need more training before, so the regulation will ensure that whoever is coming into it, then we know who to hold. They come under an umbrella, even if they can be maybe like 4 or 5, less than what a modular refinery can take. Then they must have a sort of refinery, not the regular cooking in the bush. No, that's too crude. That's too crude to be allowed. So they must have certain equipment in place. They must have, even if it's something like that looks like maybe a miniature refinery, but they must have the distilled processes set up. You know, what will take care of all the distilled processes, so that whatever we are producing goes through the process that it should go through before the final product, to ensure standard. And that's going to take a lot. But the question is, will the boys be willing to come under that fold? Or they're just used to working for themselves, burning the crude in the bush, and then getting what they can get for themselves? But I think that if the local leaders there are in sync with the government plan, the local leaders can mobilize these boys, because the local leaders also know those who are into this. So without the cooperation of the local leaders, I don't think that will get anywhere. That's on one level. Now, like you've highlighted, there are several levels to this. The ones that are mostly seen, or the corporates that are mostly apprehended, are those at the lower cadre. There are those who deal on high-level oil thievery, the ones that ship out crude oil in barrels, thousands of barrels, out of Nigeria. You know, there was a time that it seemed like Nigeria was losing as much as 900,000 barrels per day to oil thieves. And then we were just able to make about 1 million barrels per day. So it's more like they were sharing it. The country takes this is what we take. Non-state actors sharing the resources of the country. And there is some complicity in that area, because how do you ship out thousands of barrels of crude across Nigerian waters, across the sea, where you have the Navy, you have the Marine Police, and you have the Joint Task Force, and now there's a company in charge of investigation, you know, investigating oil thievery around that area? How are they able to do it? Burning boats will not solve it. That area where there is complicity, I think it is time for us to begin to hold people accountable. That whoever is fingered and investigated to be culpable, then the law has to take its course. Okay. Companies that are fingered in it should be made to pay for it. So this is where I think we can go. Otherwise, if it's about catching, I like to use the word foot soldiers or the thieves. If it's about catching them, destroying the crude itself, there are times when vessels have been apprehended, vessels have been apprehended on the sea, and the crude and the vessels are destroyed. And you're asking, like, who's at a loss here? Should the crude be destroyed as well as the vessel? If you have caught thieves with vessels of, with barrels of crude oil in a vessel, the crude oil belongs to Nigeria. So I don't think that the crude oil should be destroyed alongside the vessel. Even the vessel does not necessarily have to be destroyed, because it can be used, for shipping other items. So it can become government's property, can be confiscated rather than destroyed. Destroying means like you're trying to remove evidence.
It doesn't make
sense.
So
we don't know the company that owns the vessel because it's been set on fire. How then do we get to the bottom of this?
Okay.
There's a lot that I think needs to be unraveled. There's a lot I think needs to be done to stop the issue of oil thievery.
There's something I wanted to point out when you were, making references to some of these boys that what if the government makes such provision to bring them into the scope of things and they refuse? They can't refuse because they know if they refuse, they are just signing their death warrant. If they refuse, and the government wants to incorporate them into the way of doing things and to do it better, because the government will be really showing an olive leaf to them to bring them into the scope of things, and they don't even have that audacity, because if they do, they've signed their death warrant and the government has license to take them out whichever way it deems fit. They would be happy if the government wants to bring them into the fold. The other thing about, it's a very crude method. Some of the pictures that is being showed right there, you could see how crude, dirty, and filthy the environment is. And if you talk about some of the byproducts that comes from refining, if it is refining and it is done properly by a standard that the government and the scientists behind those processes has set out, our tire industry for cars will boom. Our textile industries for clothing for over 200 million Nigerians will boom. And there are several industries that is attached to it. So Nigeria is not only suffering fuel shortage because we are not refining here. We are actually emasculating ourselves talking about industrialization. So the other reference that you made, or the example you made, that we could be, the process is when it does not go through the quite distilled setup standard, it could affect the quality of the product to present in the market. But that's also true. However, the other day when we had a national disaster, that crude oil that was shipped into the country, petroleum, not crude oil, premium motor spirit that was shipped into Nigeria to be sold to the Nigerian populace, that was polluted, that several cars on the Nigerian road got knocked and their engines went bad. They weren't the ones that were done by the local uneducated illegal refiners. They were the ones that were bought to be sold in the country from other countries. So if they can make that mistake to buy the wrong products into the country, and then they've really lowered the standard. And of course, when you looked at the whole process, no head went for it.
That's the thing.
There was no deterrence.
Things will continue to happen when nobody is held accountable. We just talk about it. It becomes a front burner issue, not on this front burners. It becomes an issue that everybody's talking about across the country. Committees are set up to investigate it. After a while, the matter dies down, and nobody is made to pay for that.
And economically, business-wise, a lot went for it.
A lot of losses there was a lot of losses at that period. Motorists suffered losses, fuel stations suffered losses.
Because
it was just the losses.
Generators.
The losses just went from different stages. So there was losses made, and people made profits. The importers of it made profits. Those they distributed to and those who bought from the distributors suffered losses, yet nobody was made to pay for those losses. So that's why we need to ensure standard. If we're going to have illegal refineries being transformed to legal refineries, then we must ensure that they have set up whatever process that they're going to use. The distillation process must be complete. They must have their own mini refineries that ensures that what they are producing follows the distillation process and we have quality product. And then more eyes need to be on the waterways, on the sea. The Navy has to do much more. The Marine Police needs to do much more. The Joint Task Force needs to do more. Government needs to have the political will to call those who have been mentioned to make sure that they are made to answer for whatever role they are playing in aiding and abetting oil thievery in Nigeria, because it's our commonwealth that is at stake here.